I've never seen anybody get under Conor McGregor's skin. And it might have happened. I just haven't seen it. He doesn't come out of character. It's very hard to rattle him. Now, I've seen him get straight up pissed off. I have at press conferences. Some of his stuff with Jose Aldo. How else do you explain the bus and the dolly? But not that in between. Not that back and forth where somebody's jousting with him and it actually affects him in some way. I've never seen that, with one exception. Henry Cejudo. These guys have been going at it for a long time. This is almost a year. Henry started in with Conor when he was Coach Henry. And when Coach Henry became Coach Henry, he busted onto the scene. I mean, he kicked the door. Henry Cejudo had a world champion within a month of us finding out he was even coaching. Guys go their entire life. If you can get a top 10 guy, you did a good job as a coach. If you can get into a world title fight, you did a great job as a coach. And then you've got a very small, different pile. Obviously, you tip their hat if you could actually produce a world champion. It's very rare. You'll be at it your whole life. You'll be at it for entire careers of people who have entrusted you since you were a small child and not get as far as Henry got in his first month. I think he's up to 3. And that all depends on what you want to do with Prohaska. Right? Prohaska was coming out to train them. Now he's the champion. I mean, does Henry get credit for? I don't know what you do with that one. That could be number 4. All right. Henry was getting into being Coach Henry. He came after Conor from a coaching standpoint. Henry was giving Conor tips. And the tips, while having a little bit of the essence of the cringe, were also well thought out and good advice. So you were kind of left as the audience member to go, okay, is Henry poking fun at Conor? And Henry's just out here being Henry? Or is it something more? Because he was talking about distance and he was talking about range and he was talking some stuff that Conor takes very seriously, but Henry is also very skilled at. All right. I'm just reminding you guys, because I'm going back a year of how this whole thing started. So Conor comes back and then it turns into a whole thing, and now it's straight up shtick. But there's still some really good advice from a fundamental technical MMA standpoint within there. So you're reading it just a little bit different. All right, that was a year ago. Fast forward to 15 minutes ago. They're at it again. Henry and Conor just can't seem to let this go. Henry is for sure being Henry, having fun. Oh, and by the way, working great because he's getting responses from the master. Conor's upset. There's a piece of him where he would ever admit this the way I'm saying it or not. Something about that is bothering him. Why? How come? How come Henry? Who's the GOAT between them, by the way? Henry Cejudo has a claim to the GOAT. The only thing that has stopped Henry from having GOAT status is Henry. Now, let me explain that. GOAT is not an actual tournament. It's not an actual event that you can enter. It is bestowed upon you from the audience, who gains a certain respect and or appreciation of you. And then, to the extent that they feel compelled to rise you even in the absence of your competitiveness. So the GOAT is a very silly and but it's also a very real phenomenon. It is a very real compliment. What I just described, how do you think you win an Oscar? How do you think you win a Grammy? How do you think you get inducted to the Hall of Fame? There's plenty of things in life that represent exactly what our industry does for GOAT status. We're just a competitive industry where we're used to getting in there and proving it. This is something that you can't do. Now, I bring that to you because Henry has said he's great. And Henry has said it so many times, for whatever reason, the audience instantly pushes back. I don't know if anybody would know this quite to the level that I do. I mean, I watched it my entire career, and I'm not even looking to assert myself, but I fought 13 world champions at 3 different weight classes, and I beat 11 of them. Beat 11 champions in 3 different weight classes. By the way, at one point in time, I had beaten a champion from every organization in the world. All of them. Strikeforce, WC, UFC, Ultimate Fighting Championships. You can even go to King of the Cage and Gladiator Challenge for that matter. Now, I insert this because I could not get a member of the media to say about me what I was saying about me. I could not get them to say he's beaten a champion, he's covered 3 weight classes, he's fighting nothing but world champs. I couldn't get them to say any of these things. They gave me a ranking so incredibly begrudgingly, and only after Dana himself went to a press conference and lit the room up for them not giving me a ranking. It was one of these spots, and it's not actually to go down memory lane, which I realize I just digressed and did. I'm sharing with you that I just understand this. One reason people were very quick to elevate George St. Pierre is George never did, and I mean never called himself the best, never talked about his championship, never talked about how many defenses he had. He never talked about anything, and as close as you would get him, he would put the opponent over, and then he might put out a video of himself doing like a backflip in a kid's gymnastics class. You just couldn't get George to brag about George. So it was very open for other people to come and go, hey, you know what? I want to tell this story, man. I see something real special here. They thought they were the one that discovered it, but they thought it the same day that 100 other reporters had the same thought and all put it out. I mean, it's just one of these things, and I'm showing you the juxtaposition. George is the greatest ever. I maintain that as well. If I was to start to tell you why, I would bring things up that Henry has also done. I would bring up double champion. I would bring up taking out the #1 ever. Matt Hughes was the #1 ranked pound-for-pound fighter in the world, just so you understand. Demetrius Johnson was the #1 ranked pound-for-pound fighter in the world, just so you understand. I mean, there's a lot of similarities. But I don't discuss Henry Cejudo on the same page with the same amount of ink that I discussed George St. Pierre. Now, I just described us all, didn't I? So let's really focus and let's really be fair here. Who's the GOAT between Henry and Conor? Conor McGregor has won so many world championships he forgot. Conor McGregor trademarked. He actually owns the rights to Champ. Now, I don't know what he intends to do about that, and he's never come after anybody for infringing on it, which is lucky for everybody because our sport now uses that as a vernacular. But Conor actually took the time to trademark it. Only reason I bring that up is he is not a champ. He is a champ. I watched him win the interim championship, which by definition is a different title. If you were the 45-pound champion, by example, and you go and defend that, you did not become a 2-time champion. I know some guys try to run with that. Those are weird guys. I know plenty of guys that say I'm a 6-time world champion. And they're trying to let you in on a mindset, not trying to boost their own career. They're trying to let you in on a mindset. They're attempting to tell a story to the audience, which is, I never looked like I was defending. I never looked at it as though I was protecting. Each one was its own, and I was out there trying to win. They're trying to share a competitive mindset with you. Frankly, gag me with a Smurf. It's really annoying, but it's also factually incorrect. If you are the champion and you go and defend your championship without losing it in between, I mean, you can lose it in the octagon. You can lose it at a scale. Ask Oliveira. You could lose it because you were stripped of it, which you're probably very soon going to be able to ask Francis Ngannou. But if you come back and get it, that's when you become a 2-time, right? Very relevant that you understand that. Because Conor's looking at the 45-pound belt as one belt. If it has a different title, you got the World Championships and then you got the Olympic Games. It's the exact same competition, but every 4 years they call it the Olympics. Very relevant. Conor was the interim champion of the world. Okay? Do you really care what word comes in front of that? Would you care if I said that about you? I cloak you the absolute best in the world and recognize you and give you millions of dollars. I mean, this is believed by the world. Do you care what word I put in front of it first? So he was the interim champion of the world. Now, the undisputed belt, that's a totally different belt. It's called the undisputed belt. It's actually physically also a different belt. Jose brought it to the ring. Conor brought the other. I mean, just by example, they're not the same thing. And then he became the 55-pound. Like, Conor is a 3-time champion of the world. It's very relevant. Because people are talking about trying to do that now. I'm going to go be a champ. I want to be champ. There already is one. There's already a 3-time champion. His name's Conor McGregor, but you got to put that against Henry Cejudo. One thing that Conor did when Conor did it is very well respected in our sport. At that time, 145 and 155 were the 2 hardest divisions. Anywhere you go, any way that you want to do it, those are the 2 hardest divisions, and then you gotta have your debate on which it is. And that would be a very spirited and a back and forth, and you'd probably never come to a full conclusion or consensus. Conor was champion of both, so that's where that matters. That's where he becomes, at least for a period of time, the pound-for-pound king. For a period of time. Can't really get around that. Well, he's got both of the belts at the 2 hardest divisions, but Henry was very close. I mean, he really was. For Henry to get the 25-pound belt, he had to beat the number 1 ranked guy, ranked in front of Conor, ranked in front of Jon Jones, ranked in front of Fedor Emelianenko. I mean, I could play that game, but do you remember this time? Do you remember the guys that were still fighting? Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre for a small period of it. Demetrius in front of all of them. That's who Henry had to take out. Now, Henry's got the champ. I understand that. But I also think he's a 3rd champion because it was the Olympic Games. The Olympic Games was also at a different weight class, which a lot of you don't know. Don't care. You don't even think about the weight class. But it is very relevant. The only thing stopping Conor from saying he's a 3-time champion is he won 2 of them at the same weight class, and he in his own mind has put them into 1. He's wrong. Interim, undisputed, 2 different championships, 155. Henry did it at 121 pounds. I think you guys might think that's interesting. 125 pounds for the Olympic gold. 125 pounds for the world gold. 135 pounds for the world gold. I'm just asking, who's the greatest? Who's the greatest between Henry and Conor? And I think the mere fact that is not crystal clear, the perception that Conor was the biggest star. I'm not asking who the bigger star was. I'm asking you who was better. Whose career, whose victories, whose resumes, whose wins. It's tough. And I think at least some part of that being tough is what the problem that Conor has with it. I think Conor agrees. I think Conor respects Henry to a degree. I think he probably appreciated Henry to a degree. One day he wakes up, realizes I'm in a back and a forth with a guy who I thought was a cool guy, but there's something about it. Henry Cejudo is getting under the skin of Conor McGregor.